When I started MBE, guys, I'd had a very unsuccessful business when I was about 18, and then I had a slightly successful business when I was a little bit older. And then Ruben Buchanan and I started MBE when I was 21 years of age. And started just me and him. He didn't want to be operational in the business. It's funny because it's kind of like a role reversal as to where my position today. He didn't want to be operational in the business, but he would speak and be the face of the business and all of that sort of stuff. And so there I was 21 years of age, and I had the responsibility of growing this organisation put around me. MBE became quite successful quite quickly. In our second year at MBE, we were doing $1 million revenue. At that point, I had something like 8 staff, so I would have been 22. By the time I was 23, we had a team of 12, and we were a multi-million-dollar business. What happened with MBE was really interesting for me because MBE taught me about culture. Firstly, some of the stuff not to do, and secondly, some of the stuff to do. In the early days, when it was me and then I brought on 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4 person, the dream and the magic and the energy and the ambience could flow between each of us because there was 4 of us. But then as the organisation goes to 8, and then as the organisation goes to 12, and then as the organisation goes to 15 and beyond, what starts to happen to that direct one-on-one link between you and the team? Yeah, it dilutes, because now there should be a management structure within the organisation. We start to have different departments. We start to have different budgets per department. We have to start to have different strategy discussions per department. We might bring in a general manager or a CEO to start managing those departments. So now we're relying on reportability coming through each department to come up through the CEO and back to you so that you can keep your finger on the pulse. Because again, it's not about relegating or dissipating responsibility. It's about taking responsibility through other people's leadership. As the organisation started to grow, I started to lose control because I didn't yet know how to create culture. There was magic in the start, but the magic starts to dilute a little bit as you start to grow. So for about 12 months while we were doing MBE, I was obsessing about one question. And the question was, can you systemise culture? Can you systemise culture? Can you find a mechanism, can you find strategies to systemise leadership? Can you find mechanisms to systemise management? Can you find mechanisms to embed planned spontaneity within your organisation? And as I started to go around and I would research the Jack Welch's from GE and Richard Branson and all of that sort of stuff, what I started to find was that a lot of the stuff that bigger businesses spoke about or entrepreneurs who ran bigger businesses spoke about wasn't really relevant to me as an early stage business owner. Because they had a different staff base, they had, different staff size, different budgets, different revenues, different brands, different values, different methodologies, different everythings. Therefore, there was no real rule book as to how can you and how do you systemise culture. So I started to do it just through trial and error. If I did something and if I held one meeting and output and productivity went up, I'd do it again and I'd ritualise it. We do it every week. If I did something and pissed someone off or made someone cry, which sometimes shit you do does as an entrepreneur who has experienced that before, yeah, it happens, then you wouldn't do that again, right? Because crying is not the outcome that we're going for. But there is trial and error throughout this process. You've got to suck at something before you're good at something. You've got to be good at something before you can be great at something. So I started through trial and error and taking a little bit from the people that I could in the Jack Welch's and all that, and how do we start to systemise culture at a small business level? And what I found was the question wasn't so much how do you systemise culture, the question was more how do you bottle magic? How do you make it consistent? Because I reckon that just about everybody in this room has a magic within them, right? And your organisational values should stem directly from your personal values, or else you're out of alignment, it's not going to be congruent, it's not going to be consistent, right? It has to stem from you. You have magic within you. That sounds corny, and I don't mean it to be gone. I genuinely believe that. You have magic within you. Culture, ritualising it and bottling this magic is about how do we take it from within you and amplify it to the world so that you can make a greater impact. That's why this is the most important conversation that we can have.